Good afternoon. This is Media Center, Ukraine, Odesa. We continue for today. And this briefing is dedicated to installation of the first mobile shelter in Odesa. Recently, we had a briefing of one of the manufacturers to produce such 3 mobile shelters, but before that, the first mobile shelter had been installed by volunteers and charitable foundation. Our speakers are Borys Emeldesh, head of the Rada, Council of Cities Charitable Foundation, Kishchenko, director of Odesa School number 41, and Oleksiy Mishchenko, representative of Grandbud company. And could you please share details about your ideas? Just a month ago, the mobile shelter was installed. We used example of Israel because the country is constantly under shelling. That's why they have mobile shelters similar to what has been already installed in Mykolaiv and Kherson. For them, this is like their normal life, when they can get in a mobile shelter in case of shelling, to be protected from debris of shells or damaged buildings. Because usually people mostly injured by debris or parts of missiles or damaged houses. Our project is a social one. It is very important, first of all, for such cities as Kherson and Mykolaiv. And in Odessa, we are also see quite often shelling, and that's why we decided to install a mobile shelter in our city as well. Thank you. And I would also like to say that Nova Ukraine Foundation supported us, and thanks to this foundation, we were able to install such mobile shelter. And Anna, I would like to give floor to you. How it all happened? This is a simple mobile shelter, so it was supposed to be installed near the institution, and then we decided to install it on the territory of the school. The capacity of this mobile shelter is 20 places. That's why our students will be able to continue their studies offline and to cover the main subjects from the 1st of September. Your school is small because 20 places is just not that much. Yes, this is a small mobile shelter, but we hope that one more shelter will be installed, the bigger shelter. But even with this mobile shelter, we can allow 3 classes of students to study offline. Because we don't have a bomb shelter in our school, and there are no bomb shelters nearby. And that's why this mobile shelter is very helpful. And as far as I understand, the education department examined such mobile shelter, allowing to continue offline studies. We're waiting for a commission. There will be representatives of the State Emergency Service, the representative of Civil Defense. So those bodies who have to approve this mobile shelter. They have already examined it, and we are waiting for their certificate to resume studies. Oleksiy, you're representing a company that produces such bomb shelter, and now we will show how it is installed. Can you share details about your product, about the certificates of quality, etc.? And as Borys mentioned, we actually saw the experience of Israel. So these are anti-debris shelters. So the idea just emerged a year ago in summer last year, And we understood that this is very important. We developed a design. We received a compliance certificate from a state body. This is an iron and concrete construction. This thickness of wall is 250, 300 millimeters. 300 is a ceiling, 250 is for walls. So we have the specification. We just tested the shelter, and we can say that such shelters are very important for our city, let alone such cities as Kherson, Kharkiv, Mykolaiv, because they are under constant shelling, and debris killed people. And the first shelter that we installed in Mykolaiv was in Korabelny district, and unfortunately several months before the installment in summer, like cluster ammunition killed 7 or 8 people. Can you tell about shelters in other cities? So in Odesa is a pilot shelter, and we have produced shelters for Mykolaiv, for Kiev Oblast, for private enterprises, like in Koloncha. These are suburbs of the Kiev that had been occupied, and they refer to us because the warehouse of a factory was shelled, and the factory referred to us asking to install shelters. So you have shelters in Kiev Oblast, in Mykolaiv, and Kherson. And I would like to make an intervention, if you allow. And there are 2 more shelters that have been manufactured for Kherson. They are now near Mykolaiv, and by the end of the week, we will install these shelters in Kherson. I cannot say the precise whereabouts of these new shelters because we need to get permission even to get there, the permission of the military administration, because those areas are heavily shelled. And that's why it is very important to have such shelters there. And as for the shelter in Odessa, near School 41, this area is called Bolshevik. Underground, under the waters, they just flooded all basements and all underground shelters. So there is no way for people to hide. And we are going to install such mobile shelters in that area, because these districts desperately need such mobile shelters. We have discussed it with the Department of Municipal Security, with Viktor Kuznetsov. And his deputy Alexander Tole were actively involved in selecting proper place to install the first shelter. I can also say that we want to invite Mr. Kuznetsov to our media center, because we have a lot of questions about shelters in Odessa. And in Bolshevik, there is a bunker, a bomb shelter, and actually that was cleared by local population, and that was one of the shelter on the territory of a factory in that district. Are there any questions from our journalists who are present here? I have a question about your capacity. If there is some other orders from Nova Ukraine on other stakeholders, how many shelters can you produce per month? We have developed several methods for the production of such shelters. In Mykolaiv, we have a special construction site where we construct such shelters for Kherson, and we use some loading facilities to bring those shelters to Kherson, because we cannot construct such shelters in Kherson itself. And there is the second method. We have mobile teams that arrive on site with their tools, and we can construct shelters on the site. And we also have the possibility to disassemble such shelters to move them to other places. Using this method, I think that our capacity is around 20 new shelters per month, fully constructed. You're still waiting for this protocol from the State Security Service, from their certification. We have recently received such shelter on our balance, and so we are waiting for the representatives of State Emergency Service. They have already examined that shelter, so there are some technical issues. It's just important for our journalists to understand. It could be in a week, because we've sent a letter and we are waiting for the commission on site. Thank you. If there are no other questions, we can start.